It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, they say it's weird.
Weird.
But they're glad that their real teacher is here. They tell me that I'm not a real teacher.
Real
I'm just
teacher.
Like the room.
You are the most real teacher. I'm by far a real teacher, but I'm glad to see all y'all. And in a way, I guess I'm glad to see all y'all. And in another way, I'm kind of not, considering why you're here, but no big deal. It's, we didn't do well on a test, or we want to do better, and so I'm glad y'all are here for that. So that's good. All right, so everybody's got copies of tests and all that good stuff in front of you?
Yes, sir. They got their answers. I printed small sheets for them, so everybody knows where they answered, what they did, and all that good sort of stuff.
All right, so as Miss Hackett's probably told y'all, like, the best way this is going to work is, like, it's not going to, it won't work if I say something, or if I ask you something and y'all just kind of just sit there and don't say anything. Like, y'all got to tell me how this is going to work out for you and what you need. So I'm going to kind of just start off real quickly and show you just a couple of things about the test, and then kind of tell you what my plan is. But ultimately, like, this is your, like, you know what I mean? Like, reteaching thing, like whatever you need to know, that's what you just got to tell me. Okay. And so let me start by kind of showing you this first thing. So the whole idea behind this, now, can y'all see this? Do y'all see the slides? Yeah. Okay. All right. So make sure that you know that these slides are on the Google Classroom. You may have already noticed, you may not have. The test that y'all took is also there, so you can obviously use that. And what I anticipate, or what I would suggest would be the best thing, is to obviously look and see how you did, look at the questions you missed, go back to the test and re-look at some of those questions, try to get in your mind, try to understand, like, why you got them wrong, or maybe what you were thinking. And then know, though, guys, that this isn't just you're not just retaking the same test. Okay, because that doesn't really kind of do us any good just to get y'all to just memorize test questions. Ultimately, we just want to make sure that you know this stuff. So hopefully through looking at your own stuff and then kind of reading through everything, that you'll kind of know it if you didn't before. The first thing is that just to show you the test. So this is how everybody rolled, and that's through the 3 schools. So this was like 90 to 100. This was 80 to 89, 70 to 79. This is 60 to 69. Anything below is 60. And again, this is at Evans, Greenbrier, and Harlem. So, most of us passed. So that's a good sign. I think our average score there was a 69.5. So we rounded up. Everybody got a 70 average score. So again, we passed somewhat. But, obviously we don't want the reds and the oranges. And I know y'all don't like them either. So that's what we're going to try to minimize. Also, the other thing here is, let me just hide this. The other thing here is the 3 standards that this did. Remember, this was a microeconomics unit, and it dealt with 3 basic things. It dealt with the circular flow model, which most people tend to did well on, or at least understood. It dealt with supply and demand, which you can see the light blue is meaning we didn't master that standard, so that was a little rough, as was this last thing, which I think most people tended to kind of need some help on, which dealt with market structures and business organizations. Terms like oligopoly, monopoly, monopolistic competition, and perfect competition. So am I, by saying yes, would I assume correctly that maybe this last part was where most of you might need some little extra help? Yeah. Okay. How many people are feeling they need more help on supply and demand? Just say yes. Yes. Okay. Sweet. All right. So a little bit of everything. All right. We'll try to do what we can in the time that we have. Most missed questions dealt with that. The top 4 dealt with the last part, that business organizations and market structures. The next 4 dealt with supply and demand. So I'm going to try to get through those. And what I want to do is kind of show you what the right answers were on those 4 most missed questions, and then kind of talk a little bit about it, and then we'll move on. Does that sound like a plan? All right, so let's look at question 19, the most missed question. Question 19 has this picture here, and it says, which market structure is best indicated by the photograph? And I'll go ahead and tell you the answer. The answer was oligopoly. All right, so now part of why I show you these questions isn't just to simply give you the right answer. It's also to let you know that y'all should know this by now. Y'all been taking a lot of tests in your academic career. You really need to kind of look at questions, but then understand you can learn something from questions. So, like, for example, here we know that even though we may not know what an oligopoly is, we know it has something to do with Coke and Pepsi, right? So we're going to keep that in our mind when we get on to talking about those oligopolies here in a minute. Question 17. Which market structure is typically characterized by a large number of producers selling similar but differentiated products? I'm going to tell you the right answer to that one. It's A, monopolistic competition. Now, what you can do here is you can kind of look at it and now with this question, you've got a definition. If you didn't understand what monopolistic competition is going forward, keep in mind that we're talking about a large number of producers and we're talking about them selling products that are similar but somewhat different. Okay? Now, with that in mind, I'm going to bring up this third question. Look at this one carefully. Use the following list to answer the question. There are only a few large sellers. All the products sold are very similar. And there is a high degree of interdependent pricing, which means the companies have similar prices. So I'm going to tell you this too. I'm going to throw this back to y'all. And I want y'all to just shout out A or B because I'm going to tell you the answer is either A or B. But based on what we've talked about just in the past 4 minutes, what do y'all think is the right answer? Is it A, monopolistic competition, or is it B, oligopoly? All right, I'm hearing B. Why are you saying that? There you go. Whoops. There you go. A few large sellers. So I want you to keep in mind that when you get to questions like this, sometimes, and as we look at some of these questions, you're going to notice that the thing that separates all of these 4 market structures are the number of businesses. Oftentimes, that's what's going to be the difference. So a lot of them are very similar, but this one, yeah, we just need a few. That's an oligopoly. You should have known monopolistic competition meant we had a lot. So we can go ahead and say, bam, it's not that. We can also say it's not monopoly. Why? How many are in a monopoly? Yeah, just one. So we know it's not that one. So we can start playing the game of process of elimination, which helps during multiple choice tests, which you probably already know. All right, let's look at this next question, and then we're going to get into diving into a little bit more of the meat. The Jones family sells peaches at market price. Which of the following explains why they do this? So the thing that maybe tripped a lot of people up is this understanding of market price. I'll go ahead and tell you the answer. It's D. This is 25. The answer is D. So whatever this is, Jones family selling peaches, in this market, we know it's not a monopoly because we know there's not many buyers, or excuse me, many sellers. We know that it can't be an oligopoly because it's many sellers, not a few sellers. So it's either perfect competition or monopolistic competition. Which one, perfect or monopolistic, do y'all think it is? I heard a few voices. Perfect. And we'll get into that in a second. Think about peaches, think about perfect. Now let's dive into this just a little bit deeper and see if this helps you. Okay? It all deals with this standard, guys. This is the third one. Knowing the types of business organizations, sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation, and knowing the basic characteristics of these 4 types of markets: monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, and perfect competition. So I'm going to zoom forward a little bit. We'll go through this later on, but I'm going to go through to this one. This market structures. Don't overthink these. Sometimes y'all smart people, you do this. You overthink stuff and you make it harder on yourself. As simply as I can put it, when we talk about market structures, all we're talking about is what? How the markets are structured. Yes, exactly. That's all it is. How are they set up? How are these markets set up? And remember, guys, a market is what allows us to buy and sell, right? You're in the market for a new car. You're in the market for a new house. We talk about the real estate market. We talk about the job market. We talk about this little piggy going to market. Talk about you being in a market for a new boyfriend or girlfriend. And when you get that new boyfriend and girlfriend, you're now off the market. What we're talking about here is what allows us to get what we want. And then how is it set up? And again, I'm going to go back to what I just told y'all. It's set up basically by the number of producers. So one of the things we're going to talk about is barriers to entry, guys. Barriers to entry just means, hey, if I want to open up a business, how easy or how hard is it for me to get into that market and compete? And for some businesses, it's really easy. For other types of businesses, it's very hard. And it's hard because of 2 reasons. Either it costs too much or technology, we're not able to access that technology. Okay. Now, let's talk about this first one, perfect or pure competition. Take a look. Bron, and Jordan. Let's pretend we set up a game of 21. Jordan in his prime versus LeBron. Shout it out. Who's winning in a game of 21, Jordan or LeBron? Jordan? Anybody think LeBron? Anybody think Larry Bird? Yeah. Larry Bird was the right answer. No, it is. And here's the thing. I don't know who would win, but regardless, it doesn't matter. I want you to think about this. This is, in my belief, I think if we set up this game, it's going to be a really competitive game, right? It's going to be LeBron versus Jordan. It's going to be blood, sweat, and tears. They're going to be going back and forth. Braun ain't winning by 21. Jordan's not going to beat LeBron by 21. It's going to be back and forth, win by 2. The final score is going to be 52-50. Whoever wins, wins. But my point being is that neither one of them are going to dominate the other. And that's how you need to think about a perfect or pure competitive market. In a perfectly pure competitive market, nobody's dominating. You have a large number of firms that are basically producing the same product. You've got a lot of companies all selling the same good. And because of that, competition is high. Now, what you need to also be doing, smart people, is you need to be thinking, all right, well, I got a large number of businesses. Guess what? It's easy to get into the business. There are very few barriers to entry. If you want to get into this type of market, y'all can do it. So think about this example. And this is where I talked about the Jones family selling peaches. Think about that perfect peach. The example that you should know for perfect or pure competition is typically agriculture. Why? Because agriculture is basically the same. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So like I always tell people, I'm from the great state of South Carolina, which sells the most peaches every year. But I live in Georgia, the peach state. Now there's always this debate about which peaches are better, man. South Carolina peaches are the best. No, Georgia peaches are the best. Nope, South Carolina. Dude, like they're the same, right? It doesn't matter where it comes from. And so what we have is in this type of market, like you have agriculture, think about again that perfect peach when it's hot outside and you run inside and you get out of the refrigerator and that peach is cold and you take a bite in it and the juices are just like just slobbering down your face and you're embarrassing yourself. And exactly. Thank you. I mean, I do it all the time. But you eat that perfect peach and it's just delicious. That's what I want you to think about perfect peach. I want you to think agriculture. I want you to think about a product that's basically the same thing. And you have so many people buying and selling peaches. Like anybody can get into this market. It's really easy. Now, kind of in that same vein, when we talk about the types of products, know that term commodity. Commodity means that it's the same regardless who makes or sell it. So, like oil is a commodity. It doesn't matter if it comes out of the ground in Saudi Arabia or if it comes out of the Gulf of Mexico. Wheat is the same. It doesn't matter if it's grown in Russia or if it's grown in Kansas. Gold is gold. Soybeans are soybeans. We're talking about a product that is basically the same. And so, anytime like you have that, you're going to have perfect competition. Now, keep in mind, guys, if we have a bunch of people selling the same product, that price is going to be as low as it possibly can be. Because, guys, if all of y'all sitting in that room right now are all selling the exact same product, and we're all selling, let's say we're all selling an apple. We're selling apples, and we sell an apple for $1 a piece. And we're all selling the exact same product for $1 a piece. But I want to kind of get a little bit ahead of myself, and I want to say, you know what? I want to make more money. So what am I going to do? I'm going to increase my prices. My apples are the best. I polish them before I put them out. I make sure they look great. I only have the best apples, so I'm going to sell my apples for $5 a piece. Is that going to work for me? No, yeah, exactly. Good luck, man, because all of y'all are going to come behind and say, look at that moron. He's selling the exact same product for $5 a piece. I'll sell it to you for $1. And that's how it's going to work. So those keeps prices low. Keep that in mind when you talk about perfect competition. It's perfectly competitive. Nobody's going to outmatch the other. Everything is kept about as low as possible. The exact opposite, guys, is monopoly. The exact opposite. Because what doesn't exist in a monopoly? Competition. There's only one. Mono. You ever catch mono? You'll be by yourself. The game of Monopoly, the point is to be the last person there. Monopoly, there's only one seller. And therefore, you have to know, well, barriers to entry are very high. Now, let me ask you about this. If you're a monopoly and you're the only business in town that's offering a product, what do you think that means for prices? You absolutely control the price. Very good. Under perfect competition, you don't. You do whatever everybody else does. In a monopoly, you control the price. Now, of course, because there's no competition, hey, here's a review question. Remember in fundamentals, we talked about four different types of economies. We talked about a traditional, we talked about a market, we talked about a command, and we talked about a mix. In what type of economy of those four will we see this type of government monopoly come about where there's no competition? Command. I heard somebody say it. Beautiful. It's command. So because of that, you have to remember one of the downsides of that is you don't have competition. So there's really nothing that helps you get better or innovate. So the mail is kind of an example of a government monopoly. All right. If you want to send a letter from one mailbox to the next, you've got to use the post office. You've got to use stamps bought and paid for from the post office. You don't have a choice. Hey, the Postal Service is a clunker. Why are they calling the Postal Service a clunker? Look at it's dripping money out of here. Part of one of the things you're going to have to do on milestones, by the way, guys, is sometimes look at political cartoons and understand what's going on. So, hey, why do they say it's draining money? Well, the post office lost about $6 billion last year alone. Monopoly, it doesn't always work very well, but they can set the prices to whatever they want to. Other examples of monopolies you should know. Hey, more than likely, I've got ESPN. Right? I can sense what's going on in your room. I assume that more than likely you have at your house right now, you probably have either Georgia Power or maybe you use Jefferson Energy. Is that correct? You probably are using Georgia Power, most of you, aren't you? Yeah. You know why? That's a monopoly. And they can set their prices to whatever they want. Another example is the NFL. That's why I've got this guy, Vince McMahon. A few years ago, well, it's probably been about 20 years ago now, he tried to go up against the monopoly of the NFL. If you want professional football in this country, you only have the NFL to choose from. So he tried to go up against it with something called the XFL. It didn't work out. You can see they had a bunch of empty stands. But they're trying again. They're re-kicking this back up in a couple of years. And actually in February, another football league is starting up. They're going to try to go up against the monopoly of the NFL. So think about monopolies. The big thing you need to know, one company, no competition, and they can set the prices to whatever they want it to be. Not the last one, but the next one is this one. And this is where people get screwed up a little bit. Remember that question. Monopolistic competition is not the same as monopolies. Why? Because what are we adding in this one that's not available in monopolies? Competition. Now we got some competition. Focus on this guy real quick. Look at him. Little sketchball over here. Take a look at him. Look at him. Look deep into his dark, soulful eyes. All right? I want you to remember him for a minute because we're going to get back to him for a second. But the reason why I'm bringing him up is because we need to talk about monopolistic competition, which talked about genes. Remember that one question told you that in monopolistic competition, we have a lot of sellers. So monopolistic competition, you have a lot of companies selling products that are similar but not identical. So let's take a look real quick. Let me just do a quick scan of you people. Let's see. I looks like I got about maybe 3, 4, 5 different pairs of jeans in that ring. There may be more, but I got a few pairs of jeans there. All right. Jeans. Are all jeans the same?
No.
They're not. All right. Let's take a look. Look.
Let's talk to Mr. Lavin.
Yeah, talk to me. All right. So look at all these different jean companies. Now, if I gave y'all a list, y'all could go on and y'all could go for hours coming up with all these different jean companies if you wanted to. There are literally thousands of companies right now. Just Google different jean companies. There's a ton of different companies making a product that is basically similar. Just looking at y'all's screen, those jeans look basically the same. They're blue cotton pants, but are all jeans the same? No. Levi's are very different than Lucky Brands. Versace's are very different than Wranglers. So let me ask y'all this. What do you think that means for prices? They vary. Very good. Yeah, they vary. They change, man. Wranglers you can get for $29.95. Versace's you're going to pay $1,000 for. Why?
Why, guys?
Because and I think I heard it because they're not the same. They're different, man. They can offer that. Now, the difference may only be I've got a lucky tag on these jeans, but they're different. The difference may only be that they're cutting them a little different. That maybe they're using a different type of cotton that they're hand sewing these buttons on or something. Is that the end of class?
No.
Okay.
That'd be lunch.
Sweet. I was about to say, man, time flew. So you can see here that, I mean, jeans are different. And because of that, these different companies in this type of market, they're not like perfect competition where they don't have any control over their prices. This is monopolistic competition where they have a lot of control over their prices. They could charge whatever they want to. They're not a monopoly either, though, because they are going to have competition. Levi's and Wranglers are in competition with each other. They're basically the same kind of market. If you buy Levi's, you're probably buying Wranglers. And you're probably going to go with whoever may have the best price. But then if you're in the market for Versace's, you aren't going to be impressed by the $29.95 at Levi's. You want the Versace's, which means maybe you're competing or you're looking at Gucci or you're looking at some other brand that I can't even think of. You feel me? So, jeans, similar products, but not identical. And the reason why I do jeans and the reason why I bring up this guy, let's go back to Sketchball over here. Imagine, if you will, I don't want to creep you out too much, but I want you to imagine you're sitting there and it is after school today. You're walking out to the parking lot to your school, to your car or to your bus or whatever, and this guy's just chilling. All right, he's sitting there. He's standing next to his van with no windows. He's got his foot propped up on the bumper, and he's sitting there licking his lips, and he's watching y'all with his weird stash, and he's saying, look at them jeans. Look at them jeans.
Y'all get it? Get it?
Monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition. Jeans. When you get to a question on the test, either tomorrow on the milestone, thinking about jeans, monopolistic competition, think jeans. A lot of different makers selling a similar product, but they're somewhat different, which means they can control price. You got me? I didn't creep you all out too much, did I? All right, sweet. Let's rock and roll over here to the most fun to say. Say it with me. Oligopoly. Yeah, see, it's fun, isn't it? Oligopolies. Oligopolies. Remember, what was that first example of oligopolies that we did from the earlier questions? What's one example of an oligopoly you can already go ahead and tell me? Pepsi and Coke. There we go. So when we're talking about an oligopoly, I want you to think about the O. Okay? So let's say, for example, oh, that Coca-Cola is delicious. Oh, that Pepsi is nasty. All right? Oh, so what we're talking about is 3 to 5 different companies that dominate this market. 3 to 5 of them. We just have a few, just a handful. We've already talked about that. But when we have just a few or a handful, think about prices. Now, I know that each one of these kind of offer different ones, but more than likely, your service is from one of these. If you have a cell phone, you more than likely, playing the odds, have either Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, maybe T-Mobile. Now, there's a few others out there, but these are the big 4 that dominate the market. If you've got a credit card, more than likely it's a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover. Cell phones. If you have a cell phone in your pocket right now, I'm going to be willing to bet it's probably either an Apple or a Samsung. There are a few others, but those are the ones that dominate the market. Video games. If you have a video game system, PC people, I'm sorry, but you have if you have a console, you've got yourself a Microsoft Xbox, you've got yourself a Sony PlayStation, you've got yourself a Nintendo Wii or whatever that other thing is. You don't have a bunch of different companies. So I want you to think about, look at my cell phone bill. I want you to think about, look at this breakfast cereal. How can I say breakfast cereal? Because you have Kellogg's, you've got Post, you've got General Mills. A few companies dominate the market. Coke and Pepsi, we've already talked about. Just a couple, that dominate the market, that are controlling it. It's not a monopoly. It doesn't have a lot like perfect or monopolistic competition. It's just a few. And that's typically what's in sell you on the oligopoly. There's obviously going to be a lot of barriers to entry. That's why there's only a few that are dominating the market. You can, if you want to, right now, go out and start your own cell phone company. It'd probably be really difficult. Why? Because there's a lot of money involved. If you've got $18 billion in your hand to start a cell phone company, message me and we'll talk about the A you'll make on the next class or in the next test. But we also have technology, all that kind of stuff. So obviously there's a lot of barriers to entry when it comes to this product. But the problem is pricing. And that's not a problem for them. That's a problem for us as consumers. There's not a lot of variance in prices for Apples and Samsung, right? Those phones are generally about the same. An Xbox and a PlayStation, when they first came out around that $300 to $400 mark, basically the same. Your service, depending on what plan you have, you can find it is basically going to be around the same price. You might get some bells and whistles here and there, but it's all basically the same. You go to a Coke or Pepsi machine that are right next to each other, you're going to put $1 in a Coke machine, you're going to put $1 in a Pepsi machine. The prices are about the same. And typically they keep those prices a little high. Okay? So those are the market structures. Are we good on those or nah? Yeah, we feel good about those? All right. What do you think about the business organizations? Do you feel good on sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation?
Yes.
All right. Let me just real quickly because I did hear a couple say, wait, did I hear raise your hand if you said no. Don't be scared. We good on those?
They say they're good.
Okay. Well, then we'll rock and roll real quick over to supply and demand. All right. Let's look at these questions. These were the most missed for supply and demand. So questions 35 and 36 show you this picture. Now, Miss Hackett, from what I understand, has a lovely picture of a stick figure, a little man drawn up on the board. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm up here. I show them. I draw this every time, Mr. Levins, because it makes no sense to me.
Hey, it doesn't make sense to me. No, it makes sense. But it's a good one. And let me explain why. This question right here will help you kind of get an idea of how you can use that little drawing or what you can do to kind of think about it. All right. So the question says, which of these situations is most likely a result of a price ceiling being set below the equilibrium price? All right. So looking at this screen, let's look at D1. You see right here? First thing I want you smart people to tell me is tell me how much, if we look at D1 and S1, about how much was the equilibrium point or price? About $3, right? You'll see that? About $3. That's the sweet spot. That's the magic spot that we're always trying to get to. If we came out, let's say that whatever product we're doing, we can say widgets. If we came out as a business, and this is why this is important as us as business people, we know we want to produce about 33 widgets. And we want to sell those widgets for about $3 a pop. And if we do that, then that's going to be good. We're not going to have too many left over because nobody's buying them. And we're not going to have a shortage either because we want people with money in their hand to be buying our product. And if they walk away and can't buy our product, that's bad for us too. So we want to find that sweet spot. And that's what we're always trying to do is get to that sweet spot of the equilibrium point with supply and demand. But sometimes the government screws with us, guys, believe it or not. And they do things where they interfere with the market. And this is why we say we have a mixed system sometimes because government gets involved and they do things. And then one of the things they do is they put in either a price ceiling or a price floor. And what a price floor does, just like the floor that you've got in your classroom right now, you can't get any lower than that floor. The price floor prevents prices from going any lower. It is illegal. Even if we wanted to charge $3, we couldn't. The government has come in and said, nope, you can't charge any less than $4. What's the example of a price floor you all should definitely know? Minimum wage. There we go. You can't charge any less than $7.25 an hour for your label. Even if you wanted to work for $5 an hour, you can't legally do that. You've got to work for $7.25. The government says, nope, can't go any lower. Well, what does that create? The price is too high here. So guess what? If the price is too high, are people going to buy it? Yeah. Nope. So we've got a bunch left over, which we call a surplus. But then sometimes the government comes in and says, nope, prices are too high. So what are we going to do? We're going to say you can't charge any more than that. Does anybody off the top of your heads remember the one example that you need to know for a price ceiling? I can't get any higher than that $250 mark there was one example that we always see on milestones. Anybody remember what it is? Okay. In some big cities, prices of living in if you wanted to rent an apartment about the size of the classroom you're living in right now, with a sink, a one bedroom small apartment in a city you're living in, you could be spending $4,000, maybe even more a month. So what city leaders said was, well, those prices are too high. We need to put in this price ceiling. And we won't let prices get any higher. Just like the ceiling in your classroom, you can't get any higher in that room than that ceiling. And so they do that. And they say, no, prices are too high. We're going to tell you, can't go any higher than that. And what happens is that means prices are kept too low. If prices are kept too low, everybody's going to be wanting more and more and more and more. And what that means is if we have a price ceiling, getting to question 35, what we're going to have is a shortage. And so when we look at that little picture on Miss Hackett's board there, and she drew that little man, listen, let me explain something to you. And this is, even though I'm a social studies guy, this is a scientific fact, all right? So we evolved, right? We were living out in the trees and we were kind of cavemen and we were beating things over the head with clubs and all that good stuff. And then we started building our own dwellings. Well, this is a biological, physiological, anatomical, sociological fact, all right? Scientists have decided that if we stayed outdoors all the time, the average height of a human being would be 18 feet tall, okay? The ceilings we came in have kept us short. I completely made that up. That is a complete and total lie. But what I want you to know for your class for economics is ceilings keep us short. Ceilings keep us short. Price ceilings create shortages. So thinking of that little man there, that price ceiling has kept him short. Ceilings create shortages. You got me? Question 36. What's the correct answer? You just have to be able to recognize on there. Little man can't get up to equilibrium. The ceiling's preventing him. I can't get up there. P3. That line right there, P3 is our ceiling. So if the question had been like, what shows us the price floor? You need to know it was P1. Y'all following me on that one? Yeah. All right, let's rock and roll to this one real quick. Question 4. I already shown you the answer, but whatever. In a market economy, a high price will usually cause. This was question 4. Listen, guys, this was simply the law of supply and demand. The law of supply says as prices go up, what happens to quantity supplied? Goes up. Guys, remember, the arrows are the same for supply. They are the same for supply. So if price goes up, quantity supply goes up. If price goes down, quantity supply goes down. The same happens. This one over here is talking about demand. Those arrows are different for demand. If prices go up for demand, quantity demand goes down. If prices go down, demand goes up. Something different happens with demand. So all that question is asking you to know is your laws of supply and demand. Makers of a product increase their price. Consumers are often willing to continue the purchase. This is the law of demand. It's the same thing again, guys. Keeping that in mind, knowing that if the price goes up, people are not going to purchase that same product as much. Last one, that was the big one for supply and demand. If the demand curve shifts to the left, what's going to happen? Guys, on the milestone, you're going to have a piece of scratch paper. For your test, by all means, use a piece of scratch paper. Draw this stuff out. If you miss this one, draw your demand curve, draw your supply curve, and then shift that bad boy to the left and see what happens. Well, I did. I shifted it, and now I can see I have a lower price and I have less quantity. So price will fall and quantity will fall. All right. Now, those were the 4 questions that we messed up with supply and demand. What specifically can I help you with? Man, I see you. Dude back there, you're loving this. Having a lot of fun. All right. Any questions?
Talking about you. Guys, you got the question. Look at yours. Now's the time to ask. Which one did you miss?
What can I explain?
What a question about. Do what? They're looking for one or two.
That's fine. Take your time. And one thing I do want to point out too, this thing, where is it? So this thing right here that I put that is on your Google Classroom, it's got more practice, more notes, all the stuff that you may want to look through, and I've got more practice questions on there. So guys, tonight look through that stuff, and the thing that I want you to know is that even though Miss Hackett is certainly willing to help as well, up until about 11 o'clock tonight, if you want to message on Classroom and just say, hey, can you explain number 2 or something for me? I'm more than willing to do that. I'll help you out too on that. So those kind of questions, but ultimately, just tell me what you need to know, I guess.
Now's the time. Is there one you missed that you don't understand? You want to know why was it? Okay, we got a question over here.
Sweet.
Explain number 22.
22. All right, let's go to 22.
That's what we're looking for.
Deuce. Yep, that's exactly what we're looking for. 22. All right, 22. If the owner of a sole proprietorship closes his business while owning many debts, what is likely to happen? So the answer there is B. And there's a reason why I kind of used this question. Not only was it a sample question, but that kind of goes over to what sole proprietorship is. So let me kind of show you this little thing here. And I use this example because I had a friend who, when we grew up, his dad owned a construction company, and he started it around 2006 or 2007. And if you know anything about the economy at that time, former President Obama always used to call it the greatest economic recession of our country's history. And that's a terrible Obama impression. But we're going to talk about this next thing, what a recession is. But for right now, just know that the economy was bad. And so what he did, which is what a lot of business owners sometimes do, is he went to go get a loan so he could open up his business. Well, when you open up a loan, you have to offer some form of collateral, something that says, if I can't pay back my debt, you can have this. And he used his house, and that's gutsy, but people do it. Well, the problem with that is that when the business tanked, guess what he lost? His house. He couldn't pay his debt, so they took his house. So when we talk about a sole proprietorship, we're talking about a business that is owned by one person, and that has some good things. Like, for example, you should know the best part is you're your own boss. You can control everything. You can make any changes, and you get all the money. The downside to it is that term right there, liability. You are responsible for everything that happens in that business if you are the sole proprietor. You're responsible for the debts. You're responsible if somebody sues. You're responsible for anything that happens. So it's kind of the good and the bad. The good news is you keep all the money. The bad thing is that you've got the target on your back. And so in the sole proprietorship, getting back to that one particular question, he's probably going to have to sell his house and use those to pay those debts. Now, another thing that's going to happen when you look at a question like this is you can play the process of elimination. And what I mean by that is look at the other answers and ask yourself, does this make sense? Now, I know y'all are still young, y'all are still in high school. You probably haven't had to take out many loans. But hey, imagine, y'all are smart enough, y'all been around the block a few times. Do you think a bank is going to give you a loan so you can pay your debts if you've already closed your business? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to laugh at you. All right? They're not going to give you a loan. Likewise, do you think they're going to forgive your debts? Do you think a person that you borrow money from is going to say, that's cool, dude. I know you owe, $800,000. Not a big deal. We'll just wash it under the rug, right? Like, no, they're not going to do that either. So what you're going through is go ahead and mark off C and D. A is one of those that you might be thinking to yourself, hey, that might sound kind of good. I don't know how that works. It just doesn't. Okay. So B, the reason it's the answer is because of that issue of liability, that a sole proprietor is responsible for everything. Does that help? Okay. What else we got? Good question. Anything?
Okay. Thank. Anybody else? Got one? I think we're good.
Now, Miss Hackett, did you give him the one with the answers on it, or does it not have answers on it?
They're little small slips.
Right.
It has the answers.
It has the correct.
As well. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that way, guys, look through the test tonight. And again, look at those answers. And if you don't know why 28 was B, again, if you don't want to talk right now, look at those. And then, either ask Ms. Hackett or message me or whatever. And we can kind of try to help explain it. I'll go ahead and tell you some of these questions tomorrow are going to look familiar, but not all of them. You're going to have some different stuff. So you got to make sure that you know why those were the answers to those questions. Anything else?
Anybody? Now's the time. I think we're going to be good, Mr. Levin.
I hope so. Hey, guys, thanks for coming in, man. I hope this somewhat helped you. I hope I didn't confuse you anymore. Y'all stay in touch. Keep doing good work. All right.
Thank you.
Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch.